What's a fact you know that almost everyone is wrong about? Robin Williams didn't kill himself because he was depressed. He killed himself because he had Lewy body dementia, a degenerative brain disease. His autopsy showed that he had one of the worst cases ever seen. His wife has confirmed that he had about 50 symptoms, and depression was one of the least intense. His best friend, who has a name I can't possibly spell, Bobcat Goldthwait, has also confirmed it wasn't depression or substance abuse that caused him to commit suicide. The Mayans didn't disappear or go extinct. They still live in Central America and speak at least 24 different Mayan languages. The last Mayan city didn't fall to Spanish conquest until 1697. Water isn't actually conductive. It's the impurities in the water that allows it to conduct electricity. Edit. For those that are commenting that it can conduct electricity, albeit not very well, I am aware. But it conducts so very poorly that it is essentially negligible. So for simplicity's sake, it's easy enough to say it doesn't conduct electricity. The myth of Narcissus. Most people think of it as he has fallen in love with himself, missing the distinction and nuance that he falls in love with the image of himself. This is important. If you run into any narcissist, you will notice the image they have of themselves is quite different from who they actually are. Picture a hymen. If you're thinking of a sort of sheet or membrane that covers the vagina and is popped by intercourse, you're wrong. It's actually a thin piece of tissue that only partly covers the entrance to your vagina. There are some cases where it does completely cover it. This is known as an imperforate hymen. Can cause some not insignificant health issues, and is very rare. It doesn't always hurt when it breaks. It's as likely to be broken by accident long before you have sex as it is to be pristine when you do, and sometimes it just disappears by itself without breaking. Either way, despite the idea that it's some sort of foolproof virginity test, whatever you define virginity as, anyway, it's still a pretty vague concept. It leaves a lot to be desired. If you're not consistent with disciplining your child, they will not understand the concept of consequences, and thus no matter how hard you try, they will continue to engage in the undesired behavior. You all would think that this is a basic thing for parents to understand. But nay. Little Braden Caden Drayden Graydon Hayden Jaden Peden or Caden is an angel, and it is no big deal that he pushed a kid off a bike and the kid who fell may have a concussion. As a teacher, I see far too many parents coddle their children. Sorry love, your son is pushing kids for literally no reason. We have tried every behavior management and discipline strategy we could think of, yet when you pick your son up at the end of the day and you sign the incident reports, you tell him not to worry and then give him candy and ACT like nothing happened. He's going to think what he did is okay and continue to do it. Parents, please believe your child's teachers when it comes to their behavior. We just want to have a future where the generation who is going to end up taking care of us isn't full of a-holes. This is really specific, but in most anatomy or biomechanics textbooks the ankle joint is classified as a second-class lever with the ball of the foot labeled as the fulcrum. This is incorrect as the system rotates about the ankle joint, not the ball of the foot. Therefore it is a first-class lever, not second. This right here is the hill I will die on. Beer won't skunk if you let it get warm after getting cold. It's all about light exposure. Edit. Thank you to everyone who was able to better refine the statement that I made. It should be noted that extreme and extended changes in temperature will in fact affect the flavor of a beer. Your hair and nails don't actually keep growing after you die. Your body just loses moisture and fluids, making your body dehydrate and shrink up. This gives the illusion that your fingernails and hair appear longer. And it's what made people believe in vampires or witches when they'd look at people that had been dead for days and saw their hair and nails grow. Singers, almost universally, have a consistent tendency to sing slightly flat, not sharp. It's due primarily to lack of proper breath support and not because they have a tin ear for music. Anastasia is not a Disney movie and she is not a Disney princess. More importantly, the whole thing was based on a real-life scam. I see posts in r/popular all the time that misidentify sea lions as seals. It's fairly easy to tell the difference if you see how they move on land. Sea lions can tuck their back flipper under them and walk on it, while seals are tubes and have to bounce shuffle along on land. A heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing. Some severe heart attacks can lead to cardiac arrest. However, there are many that experience heart attacks unknowingly and carry on their merry way. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thank you so much for the upvotes, and thank you, kind stranger, for the award. Leaning your head back is actually worse for a nosebleed. I get nosebleeds quite frequently, and whenever I feel one coming on, I just roll up some tissue and clog it into the nostril that's bleeding. It's almost guaranteed to get rid of it in 5-10 minutes. But that is just me. Robbery and burglary are two different crimes. If you come home and find your house has been entered without your consent and property taken, you haven't been robbed, you've been burglarized. If you're in your house and someone comes in and threatens to harm you if you don't give them your property, whether a weapon is involved or not, whether they forced entry or not, you've been robbed. If you're outside and a person uses force or the threat of use of force to obtain your property, you've been robbed. This form of robbery is also called mugging. Robbery involves the use of force or the threat of the use of force against a victim. If you've been pickpocketed, you haven't been robbed. Those that can't do, teach is a mockery of a quote by Aristotle. Those that know, do. Those that understand, teach. After living in Slovakia for 7.5 years, I got beyond frustrated when people would tell me that I would catch a cold from simply being in cold weather, or that air conditioning in the summer makes you sick, or that you treat a cold with antibiotics, or that sitting on cold concrete will give you hemorrhoids. I tried to refute all of this with actual evidence, but it fell upon deaf ears. I loved my time there, but good lord, the old health superstitions are alive and well. Most people say that trees are good against climate change. They think trees will receive all the CO2, but actually we have to thank phytoplankton for making 80% of our oxygen, and for receiving CO2. While serving on an airfield, I remember telling a non-aviation friend that there was a plane coming in about an hour from them. He said that was impossible, because the tower is closed. I explained to him that flights come in all the time when the towers are closed. Even commercial jets are constantly landing without the tower being open. He absolutely blew up, said I didn't know what I was talking about, and that planes would crash all the time if that were the case. How could planes land without a tower? That just makes no sense. I even got my superior officer on the phone the next day to explain it, and he still wouldn't believe it. I had 3 other people under me explain it to him, and he still wouldn't believe it. I told him, dude, it's really simple to prove. The tower hours are posted. Check the last time a flight lands for the night and I guarantee it will be after that time. He did. It was. And yet he still refused to believe me. The sad fact is, people would probably riot if they found this out, because they'd think it was horribly dangerous. But it's been standard operating procedure for decades now, and no one has even noticed. It hasn't caused a single crash. Believe it or not, it's actually safer to come in after hours because of the reduced traffic. This is not something that needs fixing. It's a very logical move. But I'll bet there are even people reading this that won't believe it. Unless you work in aviation, you probably don't know any of this. Not sure if it's for most people, but the people I've come across had this wrong almost always. Canberra is the capital city of Australia, not Sydney. That it's a good idea to make furniture out of old pallet wood. No. That stuff gets treated with all kinds of pesticides when shipped overseas, so you don't transfer any bugs or fungi. You don't want the gases emerging from it in your living room. I've even seen baby beds made from that shit. There is not just fight or flight response, but also a freeze response. The muscles tense and the body goes very still. This explains why some people are paralyzed with fear and freeze instead of running or fighting back. It is very helpful for camouflage and hiding from predators with poor eyesight. It does not work so well when standing in front of a speeding truck. Ostriches don't bury their heads in the ground. It would also take at least 2 people to duck one, regardless of its health. Monsoon isn't rain. It is a seasonal wind. Monsoon winds actually bring droughts at certain times of the year, and rain in other parts. It's a monsoon outside is not a correct thing to say when it's pouring. Marie Antoinette never said let them eat cake. The first written account of this story is from 1767 and doesn't attribute the quote to her. She would have been 12 at the time, and would go on to marry Louis XVI 3 years after this quote was initially published. Relevant for tax season. It confounds me how many people don't know how marginal tax rates work. It's not a flat percentage of income based on which bracket you're in. It's tiered in steps, where each bracket is taxed individually. Let's review the math. In tax year 2019, the new tax brackets are as follows. The real calculation we already showed above that $9,700 to $39,474 is taxed at 12%. So the income tax in that tier is $3,572.88. So $3,572.88 plus $39,701. $39,700, 0.22, equals a whopping $3,573 rounded down to the nearest dollar. In case you missed the math, you only got taxed at the 22% bracket on that single dollar that bumped you over. The insane misunderstanding of this system leads to people turning down raises because they think they're actually losing money by getting bumped into the next tax bracket. Also, if you get a huge refund this year, that's not something to be excited about. You are effectively loaning the government your money at 0%. If you enjoy this method as a sort of forced savings account, it's an incredibly inefficient way of budget. Set up auto withdrawals to a high interest savings account, or better yet a tax advantage retirement account, to automate your savings and you'll never miss the money. Best comment of the day. Stay in bed and rest as much as you can. When you're sick, lying around all the time is stressful for the body. It needs a bit of exercise for circulation, mucus flow, and to help you relax. A damp house makes you sick. So, the air should be as dry as possible. A bit of humidity is important for the skin and lining of the airways.